Two men from New York have pleaded guilty to defrauding banks in order to get funding to operate illegal pot grows. The Department of Justice says 37-year-old Tony Lang orchestrated a conspiracy to get more than $500,000 in mortgage loans to buy houses in Bucksport, Eddington, and Canaan. According to court records, Lang told the banks those properties would be used as homes, but authorities say they were used to cultivate and manufacture marijuana. 35-year-old Young Lang Deng is accused of letting Lang use his identification and documentation to apply for a mortgage loan for the Eddington property. Deng admitted to officials the property was used as an investment and he never lived there. Authorities say when sentenced, both men face up to 30 years in prison and a maximum fine of $1 million for mortgage fraud.